The ancient Greeks told stories for lots of reasons. They told stories to explain things in nature. They told stories to explain things in human nature, basically why humans act the way they do. They told stories to help them teach what was important in their culture. For example, they told stories about where characters were strong and brave because they wanted their heroes to be strong and brave, their warriors to be strong and brave. And also, ancient Greeks told stories for entertainment purposes. So I'm going to tell a story today that explains something in nature that all cultures would have wondered about, and that is how we would get the seasons. Before we start this story, let's talk about some of the main characters. You'll notice there's two names for each character. The first one is the name the Greeks used. The second name is the name the Romans used. After the Romans defeated the Greeks, they loved the mythology, they loved their stories so much that they wanted to keep the stories and they wanted to keep the characters, but they wanted to change the names to their own Roman names. So each character has essentially two names, but they're the same person. So the first one, like I said, is Demeter. Her Roman name is Ceres. She is the goddess of grain and agriculture, and her emotions help things grow or not grow if she's angry. Her daughter is Persephone, and the Roman name of Persephone is Proserpina. Aphrodite is the goddess of love and beauty, and her Roman name is Venus. Aphrodite's son is Eros, or his Roman name is Cupid. Aphrodite's son Eros loves getting into trouble, and he carries around with him a bow and arrow and a quiver that the arrows go in, and he goes around shooting people with arrows. The story is, if you are shot with one of Cupid's arrows, you will fall in love with the first person that you see. So Eros, and Aphrodite's son, helps make people fall in love in Greek and Roman mythology. Hades, or the Roman name Pluto, is the lord of the underworld. He rules the dead. And Zeus, or Jupiter, is the lord of the heavens. He's actually the king of the gods. He's a very powerful god. His symbol is the lightning bolt. And Hermes is the messenger of the gods. His Roman name is Mercury. Hermes wears winged sandals so that he can fly through the air, delivering messages for the gods and the goddesses. Demeter and Persephone. Deep under Mount Aetna, the gods had buried alive a number of fearful, fire-breathing giants. The monsters heaved and struggled to get free, and so mightily did they shake the earth that Pluto, the king of the underworld, was alarmed. They may tear the rocks asunder and leave the realm of the dead open to the light of day, he thought. And mounting his golden chariot, he went up to see what damage had been done. Now in the blue writing here, you can see the question, what natural occurrence does the paragraph above explain? Well, when the fire-breathing giants were shaking the earth and Pluto became alarmed, that could explain earthquakes in mythology. The ancient Greeks might say that fire-breathing giants were shaking the earth and they wanted to get out. So, right now in the story, Pluto, the lord of the underworld, is coming to the surface of the earth to check on things. Now the goddess of love and beauty, fair Aphrodite, was sitting on a mountainside playing with her son Eros. She saw Pluto as he drove around with his coal-black horses, and she said, "My son, there is one who defies your power and mine. Quick, take up your darts. Send an arrow into the breast of that dark monarch. Let him too feel the pangs of love. Why should he alone escape them?" At his mother's words, Eros leapt lightly to his feet. He chose from his quiver his sharpest and truest arrow, fitted it to his bow, drew the string, and shot straight into Pluto's heart. Now, from this passage here, we see that the ancient Greeks thought that people fell in love when they were shot in the heart with Eros's arrow. The grim king had seen fair maids enough in the gloomy underworld over which he ruled, but never had his heart been touched. Now an unaccustomed warmth stole through his veins. His stern eyes softened. Before him was a blossoming valley, and along its edge a charming girl was gathering flowers. She was Persephone, daughter of Demeter, goddess of the harvest. She had strayed from her companions, and now that her basket overflowed with blossoms, she was filling her apron with lilies and violets. The god looked at Persephone and loved her at once. With one sweep of his arm, he caught her up and drove swiftly away. Now, if you look at the blue on the bottom of that slide, it asks a question. A cause is an event or action that produces a result. That result is called an effect. What effect does Eros's arrow have on Pluto? So basically, when Pluto is shot with the arrow of love, he falls in love with the first person he sees, and that person is Persephone. He sees her, he falls in love with her, and so he takes her because he's a big, powerful god, and he can. And he takes her to the underworld, to where he rules. "Mother," she screamed, while the flowers fell from her apron and strewed the ground. "Mother!" And she called on her companions by name, but already they were out of sight, so fast did Pluto urge the horses on. In a few moments they were at the river Cyane. Persephone struggled. Her loosened girdle fell to the ground, but the god held her tight. He struck the bank with his trident. The earth opened, and darkness swallowed them all, horses, chariot, Pluto, and weeping Persephone. From end to end of the earth, Demeter sought her daughter, but none could tell her where Persephone was. At last, worn out and despairing, the goddess returned to Sicily. She stood by the river Cyane, where Pluto had cleft the earth and gone down into his own dominions. Now a river nymph had seen him carry off his prize. She wanted to tell Demeter where her daughter was, but fear of Pluto kept her dumb. Yet she had picked up the girdle Persephone had dropped, and this the nymph wafted on the waves to the feet of Demeter. So basically, the little fairy found Persephone's belt, and she was too afraid to say anything, but she gave the belt to Demeter. The goddess knew then that her daughter was gone indeed, but she did not suspect Pluto of carrying her off. She laid the blame on the innocent land. "Ungrateful soil," she said, "I made you fertile. I clothed you in grass and nourishing grain, and this is how you reward me? No more shall you enjoy my favors." That year was the most cruel mankind had ever known. Nothing prospered, nothing grew. The cattle died, the seed would not come up, men and oxen toiled in vain. There was too much sun, there was too much rain. Thistles and weeds were the only things that grew. It seemed that all mankind would die of hunger. So the blue questions below the passage ask, what is the result of Demeter's anger at the land? And how did the details that describe what happened to the earth explain natural occurrences? So basically, Demeter is angry, so she's not allowing her help in letting the earth grow food. So her emotions really control the crops and the sun and the rain. And the details that describe what happened to the earth explain natural occurrences. So this can explain why we would have droughts or why we would have animals dying at certain times. So basically, Demeter's emotions are controlling things in nature. "This cannot go on," said mighty Zeus. "I see that I must intervene." And one by one he sent the gods and goddesses to plead with Demeter. But she had the same answer for all. "Not till I see my daughter shall the earth bear fruit again." Zeus, of course, knew well where Persephone was. He did not like to take from his brother the one joyful thing in his life, but he saw that he must if the race of man was to be preserved. So he called Hermes to him and said, Descend to the underworld, my son. Bid Pluto release his bride. Provided that she has not tasted food in the realm of the dead, she may return to her mother forever. So in this section, we learn that Zeus is concerned that humans will all die. And so he felt that he must intervene. And so he sends his son Hermes to go get Persephone and bring her back. The deal is, if she has not eaten any food in the underworld, she can come back to live with her mother forever. Down sped Hermes on his winged feet, and there in the dim palace of the king he found Persephone by Pluto's side. She was pale and joyless. Not all the glittering treasures of the underworld could bring a smile to her lips. You have no flowers here, she would say to her husband when he pressed gems upon her. Jewels have no fragrance. I do not want them. When she saw Hermes and heard his message, her heart leapt within her. Her cheeks grew rosy and her eyes sparkled, for she knew that Pluto would not dare to disobey his brother's command. She sprang up, ready to go at once. Only one thing troubled her, that she could not leave the underworld forever, for she had accepted a pomegranate from Pluto and sucked the sweet pulp from 4 of the seeds. With a heavy heart, Pluto made ready his golden car. He helped Persephone in while Hermes took up the reins. Dear wife, said the king, and his voice trembled as he spoke, think kindly of me, I pray you, for indeed I love you truly. It will be lonely here these 8 months you are away, and if you think mine is a gloomy palace to return to, at least remember that your husband is great among the immortals. So fare you well, and get your fill of flowers. So the blue question on the page is asking, when Persephone eats 4 pomegranate seeds, what is the result? So the deal that Zeus made was that if she had not eaten any food, she could come back to her mother. But because she ate 4 seeds, she has to go stay with Pluto for 4 months out of every year, 1 month for each seed of the pomegranate that she tasted. Straight to the temple of Demeter at Eleusis, Hermes drove the black horses. The goddess heard the chariot wheels, and as a deer bounds over the hills, she ran out swiftly to meet her daughter. Persephone flew to her mother's arms, and the sad tale of each turned into joy in the telling. So it is to this day. 1/3 of the year, Persephone spends in the gloomy abode of Pluto, 1 month for each seed that she tasted. Then nature dies, the leaves fall, the earth stops bringing forth. In spring, Persephone returns, and with her come the flowers, followed by summer's fruitfulness and the rich harvest of fall. So, just to check the comprehension here, who is Persephone's mother? Persephone's mother is Demeter, and remember, her emotions control the seasons. So how does the myth explain winter? When Persephone is with Hades, during the 4 months that she has to be with Hades in the underworld with her husband there, Demeter is so sad that she does not let the earth grow any food. And so that would explain winter, because Demeter's emotions control have an effect, on the land. So when Demeter's upset, we have winter, and when she's happy to see her daughter again, and when her daughter is with her, she allows things to grow, and that would be spring and summer. So in this way, Demeter's emotions explain the seasons in ancient Greek mythology.